Oh, and I got to remember to record this.
Pretty good.
I forgot one time we were kind of into it a little ways. I had to actually kind of ask everybody to apologize, and we were going to start over. Now we've got some people coming in. Let's see. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining. We are going to let people trickle in before we get started on the DevCast, so please bear with us just a few minutes, and we'll kick it off. Thanks everybody for joining. I think we're going to give everybody just one more minute to come in. We still have a pretty good group of people funneling in here. So please bear with us and we'll get started shortly. All right, it seems to have tapered off, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining. This is our monthly DevCast series, and this month we're going to be covering off predictive engagement for developers. We've got Derek Irwin here from our product team in Galway, Ireland. They build predictive engagement over there, and he's going to show us the tips and tricks for developers to use predictive engagement and what predictive engagement is. So before I turn it over to Dara, though, I'm going to cover off some logistics. And so Dara is going to speak for a while. We'll try and reserve a 10-minute Q&A at the end of the tutorial. If you have questions while the DevCast is going on, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window and ask a question in that. We have panelists on that can answer while the webinar is going, and we will probably reserve some live answers for the end. Also, this tutorial will be recorded and will be uploaded to our community YouTube channel, and you will be able to access that from our developer center. The URL that you see is new, so we've changed the URL to our developer center. It's developer.genesys.cloud/video. You can still reach our old URL at developer.mypurecloud.com, but we are rebranding our developer center. So with that, I'm going to start the recording and do one more introduction of Dara, and I'll turn it over to him. So, interesting. Stop recording. I guess it is recording. Well, it is recording. So Dara, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you are welcome to share your screen and take over.
Okay, thanks very much, Jim. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Dara Irwin, and I'm a product manager on the predictive engagement team. So what we're going to cover today is a quick introduction to what predictive engagement is, and then we'll get into the technical stuff. So we've got a predictive engagement SDK, we've got a new single snippet SDK that you might not have heard of yet. We've got a new API that supports custom events, and we'll touch on the capabilities that predictive engagement has within Architect. So what is predictive engagement? Predictive engagement, it's a product that we use to track real-time customer journeys across web, conversation, and offline touchpoints. It's used by a lot of Genesys customers, and we take in over 1 billion events each month. And these power a lot of product features like we have a customer journey visualization that you might have seen. I'll show you later if you haven't. We segment customers based on their customer journey. We have outcomes, which are essentially business goals, and action maps, which is the logic that kind of ties the whole thing together and powers our proactive engagement with customers. So that's, I suppose, how we influence the customer journey using customer data. And there is a big AI portion of this too. So it uses AI to predict the likelihood of a customer achieving an outcome. So you define an outcome that's important to your business, and then as customers are on your website, our machine learning algorithms are constantly assessing their behavior and seeing if they're likely or unlikely to match a given outcome. And using that information, it's pretty powerful. We can use that to target customers at the right time in their journey, just when they need it. So we're not getting in the way of customers who know what they want to go and know how to get there. We're only targeting customers who need help to get over the line. All right, so the first of 3 important parts of predictive engagement that I want to talk about are segments. Segments are what we use to group cohorts of users by their behavior or their characteristics. So when I say behavior, I mean they viewed a page, they downloaded a white paper, they filled out a form, they abandoned a form. Characteristics would be like their device type is mobile, they're using Chrome browser, they're visiting from Spain, things like that. On top of this, we have the ability via an API for you to send us third-party segments. So a lot of our customers use other tools for segmentation, like Adobe Analytics is a good one. So you can send us third-party segments, and you can assign and unassigned segments to customers based on those third-party systems. So it's kind of nice to merge the customer journey data like that across different products. Segments then can be used as a rule to trigger proactive interactions, and those happen in action maps. I'll get to those in a second. Or you can use these in Architect, and I mean you can use them for many possible use cases in Architect. But a good one is routing decisions. So if we've got a segment, a customer who maybe came in from a marketing campaign that was sent out to your VIP customers, we can segment them as a high-value customer. And in Architect, then instead of maybe routing them to a bot or putting them on a queue, we can route them directly to a VIP agent or a specialist agent based on that. And of course, with all of this, we've got public APIs available, so you can get segments that were matched in a session. You can get all the segments that an organization has. You can look up a segment given a segment ID. You can assign and unassign third-party segments. We've got lots of APIs available for all that. That's all publicly available. Next up is outcomes. Outcomes are similar in a way to segments, and the interface where we configure them looks quite similar, but they are very different entities. So outcomes are really goals that your business is trying to maximize. So I just put in an example over on the right there. So this was from an insurance website that we use to test on, and I'll show you a demo of it later. But it's showing the probability of a customer achieving one of these 3 outcomes. So we've got them requesting a quote, making a claim, purchasing business insurance. And so you can see here, like throughout the customer's journey, our our AI models are constantly working in the background, trying to predict the likelihood that a customer has of achieving a certain outcome. And so every different action that they take on your website will influence this, and you can use this data to decide when to engage with them. So if you look here, we've got someone who's well on the way to request a quote. Looks like they're about 60% likely to do it. Down here, it looked like initially like they were starting to make a claim or maybe look at business insurance, but that probability has now gone down. So the red portion kind of signifies that it was once high, but now it's reduced. Sorry. Again, public APIs are available to get these outcomes and to get the outcome scores for a given web session. Action maps are the last entity that I want to explain, and this is where all the logic is contained for how we interact with customers and how you proactively engage with them. So there are a number of action types available. You can trigger a web chat, you can trigger a web messaging offer, and I'll explain the distinction between the two of those in a moment. You can trigger a content offer, which is like a modal with some content and a call to action that you might want to show to a customer. Webhooks are deprecated, but they'll be because that functionality exists in architect flows. So architect flows is the final one there, and that's very flexible. You know, we pass in context of the customer into the flow, so you can use that to look up what they've been doing and share that data with a third-party system if you need to, or track it in some sort of analytics tool. So those are the 4 actions. Web messaging is in beta and it's available for Genesys Cloud only. Web chat is the web chat we all know and love in widgets. That's available across all the products. So that's the distinction there. Web chat will be cloud only for now, and it's in beta. It's going to be released hopefully in the next month. And yeah, so those are the actions we can take. We've also got 3 ways of triggering it. So you can trigger these actions if someone matches a certain segment. You can trigger it if the outcome score goes up or down. You can set kind of thresholds. So you can say if someone was 80% likely to purchase insurance, but now all of a sudden they've gone down to 40%, you know, something went wrong there. It's time to engage and help get them back on track. So so it's pretty powerful. And if there's a specific, just a simple web activity, like if you want to trigger a chat if someone views a certain page, you can just do that without having to create a segment or anything like that. So you'll find it in the Genesys Cloud admin over here. It's got its own section. It's got a couple of different menu items in there, but that's where you'll find the admin portion of it. And the agent portion of it, which is probably the more interesting one, is here. It's an app on the agent desktop here. So when an agent is chatting to a customer, they can see all this context. So they can see what segments have they matched, what are their outcome scores looking like. They can see that, well, it's not much help to show that they're on a web chat now, but this will persist in their journey history, and they can see if they were to scroll down here, they'd see any previous web chats or calls that happened. It would tell them the queue and what agent dealt with them. Further, you can see here what went on in their web visit. So we've got all the information here of what pages they viewed, what sort of activities they did on our website, and all of this kind of forms the customer journey and gives the agent really good context to see where this customer came from and help them empathize with where they're coming from. So that is a lightning overview of the product. I'm going to get into some of the code now and talk about our SDK. So we've got a JavaScript SDK that's used to track customer journeys across the web. Predictive Engagement actually is a product that came through an acquisition about 3 years ago from a company called AltoCloud. So you'll see You still see kind of some references to that here if you're wondering why it's AC and all that. That's where that came from. This SDK is used to identify a couple of things. So it will track kind of page views, custom events that are happening on the website, but it'll also talk to Genesys, and as we feed the customer journey data to Genesys AI services, it'll also poll to see if there are any actions we should be taking, any interventions we should be doing. So if you have an action map configured, as the SDK sends events, we'll we send actions back down to the SDK, and that'll trigger widgets or web messaging to show. It's a separate SDK to Genesys widgets, but they do work together. So this widget, this SDK just works in the background. It doesn't have a UI like widgets does. I'll get into a couple of the methods. So AC init is pretty self-explanatory. It's used to initialize our SDK, and you pass in your organization ID and the region that you're working in. We use that to make sure we hit the right API. So this is the first function call you'll make to our SDK. Begins polling our API then for potential actions to offer, like I said in the last slide. It sets the right cookies and it connects to Genesys widgets. So all the products are working together in sync there. Probably the most common one is an AC page view. And this can be just with the page view on its own, like you'll see here. Or you can pass in custom overrides. So you can override the URL and the page title. We've had some customers need to do that depending on how you do your routing. Some single page apps need it. And you can also pass in custom attributes that you want to send, any custom data you want to send through and show to the agent or use in segments can be passed through here. There's also a callback function that gets fired once the page view is successfully sent. So it's totally optional, but if you have any sort of logic there that needs to happen after the page view, you can do that to avoid any race conditions. And most of our functions do have a callback to avoid race conditions like that. AC record is probably the next most widely used function. It's used to track custom web activity on a website. So we ship inbuilt functions for page views, for form tracking, things like that. But every website serves a unique purpose, and we can't build first-party actions for all of them. So we build this AC record to let you send us whatever events are important to you. So this is just an e-commerce example I thought up where someone adds a product to a cart. So we'll say AC record, product added, and then you can add some data associated with that event. So now we can say maybe a high value customer is someone who's buying products worth more than $10. So you can use the price here in a segment, and you can say if the price is greater than 10, I want to assign the high value customer segment to this user. So you can use all this data is just fed into our system, and you can use it anywhere you want. And all these custom attributes, they can be shown in the customer journey to agents. So I think they're off by default, but you can choose which ones to show. Next up is forms track. This is another popular one. So you can see it here. It's AC forms track, and then you pass in a CSS selector for the form that you want to track. So it's pretty cool in that it tracks form submission and abandon events. So a lot of people want to engage with customers who abandon filling out a form. You can kind of see here I had a loan form. So if you had loans would be for a financial services company, you might want to increase the amount of loans people are taking out. So this would be your way of engaging with customers who are having trouble with that. It records, by default, it records the values of input selected text area fields. It kind of builds an object with the name of the input as a key and the value as the property value. So that's how all that works. We don't record values of hidden, submit, or password fields. And we have a regex that we run across the name of the input. It's publicly available online, so you can check it in our documentation. But essentially, it serves the purpose of not tracking credit cards, not tracking security codes, any kind of PII we don't want to be ingesting into our system like that. It's no good to us, and we don't want to be storing it. So we hide all that by default. And the data that is captured in the form that was submitted or abandoned can be shown to agents. It can also be used in segments, outcomes, action maps. So this is a particularly powerful function. We've got on, off, and once. These are for subscribing to lifecycle events for web chats and content offers. So it contains all the information about the offer that happened. So what action map triggered it. It also contains information about the customer themselves. So it has the customer ID, it has their session ID. And people have been using this a lot to track certain data in things like Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics. If you have any other tool that you want to send this data to, these hooks are pretty handy. So on is subscribing to this event and kind of tell me whenever this event happens. Off is obviously unsubscribe, and once will just subscribe to it. And once it gets the first event, it'll stop subscribing after that. There are a lot of these. There are a lot of events you can listen to around web chats and content offers. Those are all documented online, but it follows the same pattern like this anyway. Lesser known one, this is an API function to get the session data. This will give you the session ID and the customer cookie ID. So this can be used, this data can be used if you want to look up data using one of our authenticated APIs. So you can, you'll need the customer ID, you'll need the session ID, sorry. So the customer ID and the session ID can be used to look up what events happened in that session, what segments did they match, all that sort of stuff. So you can use our authenticated APIs to look up that information. Debug, it's quite a handy one. It enables verbose logging to the browser console, helps you develop integrations. I'll show you this in a demo in a moment. And if you want to turn it off, just pass in false as a second parameter. Destroy is another one that's for development usage only. This will be handy as you iterate on it. So clears all your cookies and all your session data. And I'd highly recommend only using the last two, so AC destroy and AC debug. I'd highly recommend only using those in the browser console so they don't ever end up in code. Okay, I'll give you a quick demo now of how all of that works together. All right, so I am on queue here. I'm going to load up one of our test insurance websites. Okay, so I'm going to click on auto insurance, see how it's going. Maybe start typing in my license plate. So here's a proactive offer that came in because I viewed auto insurance. I have a segment for people who view auto insurance. So I'll put in my details here. Jane Doe. And I'll kick off a chat. So this chat comes through to me. And right here now, I can see Jane's customer journey. So this is Jane's first visit, but I can see how she's tracked. So she viewed the home page. She matched a segment. As we go down here, auto insurance. She matched the interested in auto insurance segment. This action map fired, and she accepted the chat. So I'll show this side by side. So you can see now our outcome scores. If I go to home, so I was on track to look up auto insurance, but if I go back to the home page, my quote requested should go down, right? So that's the kind of thing you can use to trigger a chat, which is just pretty helpful. Further now, I'll show you a sample AC record. So AC record test, and I'll just pass in some custom data there. So I sent that, and it's showing up over here now on the customer journey. So the event name here and the data is showing live. Next up, I'll show you how we can override page views. So I'll just pretend another page view happened. And here, the test title came up here, and it showed up a new page view. Finally, AC debug. So here it shows me kind of what's happening on the ping. It's very, very verbose logging. So you only want to do this in development if you're having issues. But just to kind of give you an idea of what we have there. AC debug false. That'll turn it all off. And then finally, AC destroy, like I showed. That'll destroy the session. So now I can go home insurance, auto insurance, and it's stopped updating because we're no longer sending events. So that's a super quick whirlwind tour, but just want to kind of show the different capabilities of what you can do with our SDK and the context that you can give to agents. So kind of working your way around sites that maybe don't have conventional URL formatting, things like that. Okay, I'll go back to our slides for a second because I want to touch on something new that's coming out, the single snippet SDK. So the single snippet SDK is the new state of the art in Genesys Cloud. It's one snippet for all of our products. So where today we need widgets, and the Predictive Engagement SDK to load separately on the website, this is going to get rid of all of that. It's going to be one snippet for all Genesys Cloud products. We're going to configure how it all works in the Genesys Cloud admin. I'll show you a screenshot of that in the next slide. And today, the following plugins are available in beta. So we've got web messaging and predictive engagement. Those are available in beta right now. And in the future, we're going to offer co-browse, content offers, and callbacks. And those are all going to work seamlessly together. You're not going to have to add a new, you're not going to have to download any new SDK or anything. You just configure it in the Genesys Cloud admin and deploy it. You'll see now, instead of a organization ID, we've got a deployment ID. So you can have multiple deployments for a given org. So you can be testing it on a staging site. And things like that without having to worry about those settings affecting your production site. So if we look here, we can see how the configuration has become much more user friendly. Anyone familiar with widgets will recognize what I'm showing on the left there. How you have to set up how you have to configure it and pass in all that data, which, to be fair, yes, you usually only have to do it once, but it's still a pain for customers to have to add that to their website, or have to get web development help if they want to change something small like the queue or something like that. Versus on the right, this is a mock-up of what it will look like. It's in development at the moment, and it'll be, it's in beta at the moment, and that will be available in late May, early June. So you can configure how it looks, how it behaves, where it routes to, all that sort of stuff. All happens in the admin. Our SDK that I showed you just now is now in the single snippet. We'll have all the same functionality there. We'll just have a different syntax. So I'm not gonna go through all the same content I did before. Just want to show here, it's everything you could do in our Predictive Engagement SDK is now possible within the single snippet and journey plugin. just a slightly different syntax. So my advice there would be, if you are working in a hybrid environment, or Engage, Connect, or if you're working in a Genesys cloud org that's already using widgets, then the Predictive Engagement SDK is the one for you. If you're starting fresh in Genesys Cloud, I would start with the single snippet and journey plugin. All future innovation is going to be built into this journey plugin and single snippet. So it's the direction we're all going. We've no plans to deprecate this Predictive Engagement SDK or anything like that. It's still the only show for the hybrid environment. So this will all continue working just as it does today. But just if you wanted to kind of future-proof things in Genesys Cloud only, I'd highly recommend just going with the single snippet and journey plugin. Okay, so now we're going to talk about something new, which is custom events. It's an API that we have to allow you to share events with us and parts of the customer journey that happen outside of the website. So it's kind of where you wouldn't be using this to track customer behavior on a website now. That's what our JavaScript SDK is for. But custom events, it's a REST API that you can use to send any data on customer journeys that happen outside of a website. So this is incredibly flexible, and it's very useful for sending the context of a customer journey to agents for a myriad of use cases. So if you're an e-commerce customer and you might want to track deliveries. So whereas last year, if a customer wanted to do this, they had an agent, customer would message the company to start a web chat, and they'd be asking, where's my delivery? The agent would then have to go into a separate system, look up where the delivery is, and then get back to the customer. Whereas with this, you can build an integration with the delivery tracking software, send those custom events to us, updates on the delivery. We can include those in the customer journey, and I'll show you an example of that. Include those in the customer journey. We can also create segments using that data. So if somebody comes onto your website and their delivery is delayed, you can put them into a segment and proactively engage with that customer. So instead of them calling up your contact center, which is one of the more expensive ways of supporting customers, you can proactively engage with them before they go and look up the number. You can proactively engage with them. You could even engage with them with a bot to in the future to tell them the status of their parcel that's on the way, or where it's delivered, or what its updated ETA is. So this data, yeah, like I said, it can be used in segments, outcomes, action maps, and even architect. There's a public REST API available, so you can post your custom events to that endpoint. You can get the session data there, and you can get the events for a given session. There are so many use cases here. It's hard to actually come up with a list of them, but like delivery tracking is the one I just talked about. Tracking the state of insurance claims is something that we heard from customers as well, where customers would regularly, like if you're making a claim after a car crash or something, it can be a drawn out process. So customers regularly ring up to get the status of their claim. So being able to segment based on that and proactively offer an action map based on that is pretty powerful in reducing call volume and keeping customers up to date. But I mean, I'm sure you can all think of use cases within your own company for this. Any CRM data that's relevant, or any back of house system that you use. This is a really good option to integrate that journey data into Genesys and show it to the agents as they as they interact with that customer. So this is an example of custom events. So I've made the following post request to that URL. So we've got, I'll just run through some of the attributes we have. So we've got a customer ID and customer ID type, right? So we're saying janedoe@gmail.com, and that's her email. So when this comes in, we'll link that up with an external contact if we can find one with those details. We pass in an event name, so the package was handed over. The session is a delivery session. We've got this external ID, so this would be the tracking code for that parcel. It's not something that Genesys generates. It's something that you give to us. So you can give us an external ID to uniquely refer to that session. We've got the external URL here if they want to get more information. And the next two properties, attributes and attribute lists, are how you would send us custom data on that event. So I'm passing in the parcel date, the delivery ETA, package ID, or the delay reason. And this data can all be made available to the agent, and it can be shown here. So you can see I've got the parcel weight showing up here, and I'll show a more fully fledged demo in a moment. Attribute list is very similar to attributes, but it's the value here will be a list of strings or a list of numbers or booleans, whatever. It's just our way of kind of keeping a tight schema on all of this, while still giving flexibility. The created date, then this can be in the past. For example, this is whenever that event happened, so it doesn't have to be. You can override that if you want, which is pretty handy. All right, so I'm going to give a quick demo of custom events now. All right. So I've started a custom session for delivery here. I'll show you in Postman. So I hope you can all see this. Package registered. So I've sent this through. I've sent the package weight, sent the delivery ETA, I've sent the location, all those attributes true, and I've configured the UI to show them here. So if I click this, I can see everything about it. I can see the location, so I can copy and paste this if I need to go to an external system for any reason. There's no delay. The ETA is May 1st, so I've got all this data coming through and showing up here. So now I'll show you, reload this. I'll show you all of this updating in real time. Okay, so we've registered the package, and now we're going to put it in transit. So I send that custom event. Now the location is different. It's in Canmore, BC. So that's updated the last location here. We'll keep going. We'll put it, maybe it's arrived at customs. Now it's at customs. So now the agent can see where its last location was. And again, it can click on all of this, see the location, see the package ID, the delay reason, all that. So when they're talking to a customer, they'll see this live in their customer journey, beside the web chat, beside their web visits. We'll see all of this. And they'll be able to tell them this information without even leaving Genesys Cloud. Now, we'll go to the last stage. So it gets delivered. And so again, we update all these. You can pass in any event. You can send in any amount of events, and we'll show them all here. Give that context to the agent. And if you see here, like I said, I've gone through everything here. The response will add in a session ID, and it'll add in the external contact ID. So this data can be used to look up more information on the customer. Maybe you want to add an attribute to their external contact. Maybe you want to look up the session. We've got an API here to look up the session. You can see all the information here. So we've got the ETA, the last location, parcel weight. We can see what the last event was, and back on the external contact. Another public API is this one. So we can look through all the events in chronological order. So we can see here the package in transit is the most recent one. See the event type. This is all publicly available. You can use this today. See all of it here. What was this one? Package delivered, and working our way back. So I hope you can see how incredibly flexible that this is. We can use this. We can use this data in Architect. We can use this in segments and outcomes, and it really does give the agents a brilliant overview of what's going on. If you ever wanted to track something that happens offline, you know, many businesses might have a physical location. So if you want to track visits to that physical location, if someone, you know, walks into a bank and needs help with their loan, you know, that's still someone looking for support. It's just not going through the contact center. It's still part of their customer journey with your company. So if you want to, you know, truly empathize with what the customer is doing and what their experience with your company is, that's kind of the adding all of this information and making it available to agents is a really good way of doing that. And yeah, all of these they're all public APIs, all available for you to check out today. If you have any interesting use cases you ever want to talk through or any questions on it, feel free to get in touch. That's everything I had on custom events. Finally, I want to talk about Architect. So Architect, I'm sure you're all familiar with, is a tool for managing workflows. A lot of people use it to make routing decisions. With all the customer journey data that Predictive Engagement tracks, you can do this. You can do this and more. You can really orchestrate customer journeys in a personal way. You can use that customer journey information to make sure a customer never has to repeat themselves when they go from one agent to another. You can pass that context through. It can be, you know, this once we've got a feature coming out now in a couple of months, and called identity stitching, which will let us track kind of your external contacts from. We can link them up if they phone in and they're also on a website. We can link those two together, so you can kind of get a holistic view of their journey, and you can use kind of all that context to help them and solve their problem. So in Architect today, it's possible to use customer journey data in inbound chat flows and generic workflows. Inbound messaging flows are coming next month. That's a new flow that will be part of web messaging. So the following journey data actions are there. So you can get the current session that customers on. You can get their historical sessions. You can get segments, get outcomes that they matched. You can get the outcome scores for a given session, and you can kind of pull those if you need to see how that value is trending. So we've got some future plans on this as well. So we're going to add these data actions to the other flow types. So if someone calls in, like I said, linking that phone call to a web visit or a web chat that happened, you know, 2 weeks ago. So you can kind of tie all that together and use that context to make routing decisions. And then once it does get routed, provide that context to the agent. So yeah, you can see over here what we've got available. I can show you really just very quick before we finish what sort of data is available. I've got an Architect flow here. So starts, this is an inbound chat flow. Starts, we've got the journey context, which is a flow variable that's available in any conversation that was proactively offered. So we've got chat, customer session.id. And we'll go here, we'll say we'll send a response, and oops. No, string builder. Right, so if we do state.session dot, so this is all the information that you have available to you in Architect. So you've got all the attributes. So in the delivery example, that was the ETA, the package weight. You can have whatever you want there. All that available here. Away date, you know, when the user was idle, what browser they're using, use the ID, their device type, how long the session has been active, how many events we've had, their location, all this sort of stuff. IP address. Recent example here is using the IP address to block abusive callers. So combining the IP address with an Architect data table. Marketing campaign. This is kind of cool. It contains the UTM parameters. So if they came through, if they clicked an email marketing campaign and came through, you'd get that context here now, and you'd be able to use that to route them to the right queue, or add that information back to Marketo or whatever your marketing automation product is. We've got the outcome achievements, we've got the segment assignments. So what outcomes were achieved, what segments happened in a given session, and also what searches they did. So if your website has a search box, we can track those as well. And so you can, the session is a pretty good jumping off point to find data that's useful for orchestration here. Okay, and I think we're coming up on about 15 minutes left now, so might wrap it up there and see if there are any questions.
All right, Dara, thanks. That was awesome. I learned a lot. I knew a fair amount about predictive engagement, but I learned even more from that. So everybody, if you're here, if you have any questions, while you've got everybody, Dara and some of the rest of the team from Predictive Engagement, now would be a good time to ask them a question. Please do so through the Q&A panel. We can answer it live, or we'll answer it via a message. Additionally, if you have questions after this, if you go back and watch this offline through the YouTube video and you have additional questions, you can always visit our developer center and go to the forum there and post a question. And we have moderators on the forum that will answer your questions as best they can, or get you in contact with the right person. So Dara, one of the things about custom events, I'm really excited about that. I've wanted that functionality for a long time. One of my use cases was back in the day when IoT was the next big thing, right? You know, if you have a smart, washer and dryer and they break down, they get an error code on them. You could use custom events and send that error code to the support center for that brand. And they could proactively reach out to the customer if they registered their, warranty, you would have the contact information for the customer, and you could proactively reach out. So imagine the customer service that I would love if they would call me up because something broke and I wouldn't have to call in. So
yeah, it's true. It opens up so many possibilities for delighting customers and improving the customer experience. Like that, there's functionality coming out soon, if it hasn't already been released, where you can trigger an architect flow based on an event happening. So
exactly,
that's definitely something that's, if it's not possible today, it'll be possible very, very soon.
So Robert Wakefield, Carl asked, can custom events be routed at this time? So Dara, you were just alluding to that, right? One thing I don't think Dara touched on is that in the action maps that you can define in predictive engagement, you can invoke a workflow, which is basically it's like a inbound call flow or an email flow. It's just a
It's just not tied to an interaction.
Generic workflow. You can invoke an architect flow based on an action map, which is basically if custom event X happens, invoke a flow and do something. So one cool example, what Dara was showing with the delivery events, you know, we all get those from Amazon today. When they're delivering something, they text you and tell you where it's at, when it's coming. If you got that custom event, if the delivery person scanned the package, that comes into Genesys, you invoke a workflow, you can send an agentless SMS out to that customer and let them know where that package was scanned, where it's sitting, if it's on the truck for delivery. Like all of that is really possible right now with custom events and workflows and everything you can put together now in Genesys. You can create some really cool functionality.
Yeah, and I don't think we don't have a native data action for custom events yet, Robert, but you can build a custom data action to do that. That's all possible in Architect today. In terms of why are webhooks going away, the reason we're deprecating them is because we added webhooks to action maps before we added the ability to trigger an Architect flow. And the webhook functionality is now possible to do in Architect. So just instead of having two ways to do the same thing, we wanted to simplify it. So that's the reason. The webhook functionality will now live in Architect.
So Robert's got it. Robert's great. So he's really active on the community forums. You see answers from Robert all the time. So he's always got these really good ideas. And I know I've seen some of the pain points in Architect, so I know where he's coming from with this. So right now in Architect, we don't really have a lot of visibility of the journey in Architect, right? You can't easily tell the path that someone takes in the Architect flow. And you can drop flow outcomes into your flow to kind of track. But I'm sure Robert, like me, is thinking, man, we could use this to track the journey in the IVR, right? You could send custom events or send a record to track what they were doing in the IVR.
Yeah, so the IVR is a cool one. I mean, there's two ways to think about it, in that we could use custom events to segment people based on what they answer in an IVR, but there's also kind of what's one of the North Stars, I suppose, for the AI group, where we don't need to ask questions that we already know the answer to in an IVR. So instead of having someone repeat information that we already know, we could use their journey data to fill in some of the or at least this is what I'd like to see, is where we can fill in that data using information we have from their journey.
Right.
So today on inbound call flows, where it's essentially coming soon with identity stitching, Robert. So that'll be available once identity stitching is available, because once that's available, we'll be able to tie their phone number back to the external contact, and we'll be able to get all the web sessions, all their previous journeys from that external contact.
It's very cool. All right. Are there any other questions from anyone? Give a couple more minutes here. So, somebody's asking about pricing. So how does pricing for predictive engagement work? Is there anyone here that could hop on and answer that? Dara, do you know that?
There's a question on pricing, was there?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So pricing, it's so at the moment you pay per event. You can buy bulk events and get a discount, so that's something you'd need to talk to your customer success manager about. Thanks. Yeah, actually, someone put a link to the event pricing there, and thanks, Ishan. What level of Genesys Cloud is required for predictive engagement? We operate on GC2 and GC3 licenses. and the digital license that was that will be coming in the future.
All right, Hikem answered, flow milestones are on the roadmap for the IVR. Yes, flow milestones are on the roadmap. So myself and Robert, I think, we're always looking for what more can we do, right? And having some flexibility and an API that we could create our own type of flow milestones with maybe even more data than is available. There's some interesting use cases that you can pull out of that. So. Robert's asking, could it be GC1 with a digital upgrade? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think Genesys Cloud 1 is really just the UC stuff, right? So I'm not even sure that like Architect is really available in GC1.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Maybe Mark knows for sure. I thought it was just GC2 and 3, but I don't know if any of the other panelists know the answer.
Yeah, Robert, I'm sorry to sound so unknowledgeable. It's not that. It's just most of the folks that I work with are already on GC2 or GC3. So.
Oh, and Mark Sassoon just answered there. So digital upgrade seems to allow for it. So that's good.
All right, good.
And I just want to echo another comment that Mark Sassoon made to contact your local competence center for pricing and technical advice, because yeah, if you have a reliable usage level, we can kind of plan for that, and you can buy a bulk set of events to save you money. So have to echo that.
I would assume you can also use this. I mean, I know we have the SDK that you can drop into a website. I assume you could use it from a mobile app, like a native iOS or Android app, if you use the custom events, right? If you wanted to monitor what the user was doing in your mobile app.
Yeah, that's correct. You could, and yeah, mobile SDK is something that we are looking at this year as well. So that's something that will become a lot easier. But exactly, custom events will work just fine for that if you want to track that in the customer journey. And again, just going back to, I saw a lot of questions on pricing. So I just want to remind people that there is a free trial option as well. So if you're not using Predictive Engagement at the moment, get in touch with your CSM, and we'll be able to get you up and running with a free trial.
If I'm not sure if everybody realizes this, but you can enable this functionality on your own, assuming you have the right permissions in Genesys Cloud. If you go into admin under Genesys add-ons, it's not under the App Foundry stuff or integrations, but if you go, it's like in the upper left when you go into admin, Genesys add-ons, you can simply activate predictive engagement. And then once you assign the predictive engagement role or the permissions to your user, then you'll have the admin panel, and you can play with all of this stuff. And it really is really easy to get started. You can drop the web snippet onto a website, or you could use something like Tamper-Monkey in Chrome as an extension to kind of play with it on a website that you don't really have coding capabilities for. It's really pretty simple to get started and super powerful. All right, well, questions have stopped. So I think we'll wrap up there. Again, if you have any questions as time goes on, please visit the Developer Center and go to the forum and post a question there. We'll be happy to answer it. And Dara and the rest of the Predictive Engagement team, thanks for joining this morning. It was really enlightening. And everybody, we will see you next month on the next DevCast. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.